following this today, you should go right now to Wizard. One of our guests at one of our conventions earlier. She's been in 40 films and TV shows. You remember her from Tron, from Falcon Crest, from Chips, from Matlock, and of course she was Lacey Underall in today's movie Caddyshack. Here is the great Cindy Morgan.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome, Cindy. So good to see you again.
You too.
Welcome back to Wizard World.
Thank you. This is so exciting. That gopher looks like it's eating your head.
It's gonna kill me. It's gonna kill me. The gopher in its own way kind of found its way into our hearts.
Maybe he's just wrapping his arms around you.
He is. He's a loving gopher. Just ask Bill Murray. So with all 100 credits to his credit, including Michael Clayton, The Pledge, Homeland, Against the Law, and The Great Santini, he played Danny Noonan in the movie. Here is Michael O'Keefe.
Yo, man, what's going on?
Oh, it's tremendous to see you. Welcome to Wizard World and welcome to today's virtual experience.
Thank you. Are you
guys,
looks like you're gonna have to have that gopher surgically removed.
It's gonna get me. It's gonna get me. I'll just kind of work around it. But it's great to see both of you guys. Can you guys believe that next month will be the 40th anniversary of the debut of this film?
40th anniversary of the release. Michael, we shot it 41 years ago.
Yeah, it was 1979. I remember it just like it was 41 years ago.
And you know, the film, nothing happened on set, right? It was really boring filming. Nothing really happened.
Well, you know, making Caddyshack was kind of like what David Crosby said about the 60s. Anybody who says they remember it wasn't actually there.
A lot of that is true.
What are some of your favorite stories?
I remember some stuff.
Tell me, Cindy.
Well, you know, most films, right, Michael, or television shows have a wonderful wrap party at the end of filming. We had a wrap party at the end of every day.
Yeah, that we started right at the first day and we never really stopped. By the time we got to the wrap party, it was a little anticlimactic.
It was the mother of all wrap parties, I recall. We had 2 hours until the Teamsters came to drive us to the airport. So I figured, what the heck? And I stayed up and I went to my room and I packed my stuff and my cockatiel. I brought my cockatiel. Do you remember? My bird was in one of the little containers.
No, and I don't, like I said, I barely remember making the movie. You had a cockatiel when we were there?
Yeah. My bird. Well, I put him in a nice little suitcase and right to your X-ray. You know, she started laying eggs after that. But she lived a good life. But when I got to the car, it was a little late. And who's that lovely lady who played the one when you were in the shower? Was that Lois Kibbe?
Lois Kibbe.
My cat's playing with the light. Oscar, dude. Lois, when I came out and I was a little late, what she actually said was, "I will never work with an ingenue again."
Well, that would have limited her career severely.
Yes, it would have. Sorry about Oscar. He thinks he's in the shot. Okay, find something to
Oscar
do.
is okay. Oscar's allowed to be in the shot.
Okay, as long as he doesn't knock he's going for the computer. Cats love computers.
So talk about casting. Talk about how you guys got cast for these roles. Michael, you just come off a pretty successful run. And Cindy, for you, it was kind of your first major film.
I was in broadcasting. That's why, Michael, I talk so much because I did all the talking. I did Morning Drive in Chicago at what is now the Loop. It used to be WSDM, and they weren't paying me enough. These were the chest checker record people. I believe they were the people that Cadillac Records was made about, and they were paying me to do Morning Drive $135 a week. It wasn't enough, so I moved to LA. And they wouldn't let me get on camera because I was the voice on my voice was a lot deeper then. You know, if you listen real carefully, you can drop your voice into a much lower register. they wouldn't let me do commercials, so I moved to LA. And no offense, Michael, I just didn't tell anybody I didn't take any acting classes. I just
Well, I'm shocked. I am shocked and
shut up.
that you never took any acting classes. I have never been so insulted in my life.
Okay, I took 2 quick ones, and I studied with Harvey Lembeck. That saved my life. And another guy who got rid of my radio DJ voice. You know, when everything sounds like this. Somebody got rid of that. And Harvey Lembeck, Michael Lembeck's dad, taught me the one thing nobody could teach me to do. You want to know what that is?
No, I think that might just shock your entire audience if you said that.
He taught me how to shut up and listen.
Oh, well.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
A mighty day.
I lobbed it up.
So, Michael, talk about getting cast for this and how you.
Yeah, you know, Doug Kenny and Harold Ramis and Brian Murray were meeting people in New York, and I had a meeting with them, and they asked me if I played golf, and you know, of course, I lied and said yes. And then there was another meeting in LA, and you know, then I started kind of getting the feeling that they were interested in me because I got this call back. And no, most people don't know this, but apparently it was down to me and one other actor. Jared, do you have any idea who this other actor is?
I believe Mickey Rourke.
That's right. It was Mickey Rourke. And I just want you to imagine Mickey Rourke and Ty Webb walking down a fairway.
No.
And Ty Webb saying something like, "Do you do drugs, Danny?" And Mickey Rourke saying, "Go fuck yourself, mister."
Can we say that?
Well, we just did.
The FCC can't get us today. We're good.
Okay, that's what I was going to. Okay.
I was thrilled to get the part because I was a huge SNL fan. I knew about Chevy because I had seen a National Lampoon show in New York, Lemmings. And Billy was just kind of breaking big. You know, Billy hadn't done any features except Meatballs, but that wasn't even released yet. And then Rodney, you know, was a huge part of my sort of TV awareness, and also Ted because of Mary Tyler Moore, which was my favorite TV show when I was a teenager. So I was thrilled just to get a shot and be a part of it and kind of grab onto their coattails and hang out.
Well, it's a movie that has those heavyweights in it, but when you watch the film, the out of the first 3 credits that go are 2 of you. You're 2 of the first 3 credits, so it's still, in a lot of ways, even though they had the star appeal, it's your movie in a lot of ways.
Well, that's kind of you to say, but those were the 4 of the funniest men on the planet. And Michael, isn't it true? They all had, except for Chevy and Billy, both came from improv backgrounds. But Ted, Rodney was doing his nightclub act. Rodney took the script and went, you know, it was gone. And there's Ted holding on the script going, but I've got lines. I've got lines here. And he was legitimately angry, wouldn't you say?
Ted was probably, I think Rodney was really ready to fly by the seat of his pants.
Oh, yeah.
Billy and Chevy were. But Ted was not necessarily happy all the time. And that kind of worked for the character. But he was also able to rise to the occasion.
Yes, he did.
But for me, the real reason the film works, you know, of course, the casting was great, but really the biggest, I think, factor in making it work was Harold. He was able to bring everybody together and find a way of modulating all.
Camp counselor, wasn't he?
Right. Yeah.
And do you know that he would whisper a lot of the stuff I did in the film? He would whisper in my ear to go do it. There were a couple. Well, I don't think I can do it on. There were a couple of things he whispered to me to do, and I go, "What?" Okay, the one I can tell you about is you know how hot it was on those sets and the giant Klieg lights, and it was 1,000,000 degrees in there. Yeah. And I was doing the scenes with Chevy, and it was so hot, and they were always constantly touching up the makeup because it was just like frosting a hot cake. It was just melting off. And Harold came over and said, "Go over there and sit down next to Chevy." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Go sit down and say, 'Sing me a love song.'" I said, "Why?" He goes, "Just do it." I said, "Okay." And I say, "Sing me." Now you can tell, if you watch my eyes, you can tell exactly where I found out we were shooting a scene. I didn't know we were even filming. And out of the corner of my right eye, I look and I went, "The damn camera light's on." That's how I found out. I went, "All right, you guys want to play? Let's play." That was tequila in front of.
I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that at all, but you know, I was there the day that Rodney shot one of his first scenes, and it was the thing where he goes through the pro shop and he does the thing
Oh
about
yeah.
that. I bet you get a bowl of soup. And so they were ready to start, and they had, they rolled the camera and slated, and then Harold said action and nothing happened. And Harold said action, nothing happened. He said action, nothing. And then Harold said, Rodney, and Rodney was like, yeah. Rodney, when I say action, that's you start. He goes, oh, you want me to do the bit? He goes, yeah, do the bit, man. And then Rodney started rolling in. So I mean, those were the kind of things that were happening every day on that set.
And the thing is, Rodney was doing so beautifully. Do you remember, Michael, how we would break whenever the spirit moved them for lunch? Like whenever, wherever, there would suddenly be tables and some sandwiches. And I remember one of those lunches, I sat down and Rodney was sitting there, and I wish to God people could have heard this, because he's sitting there. Just remember how he'd go on the Carson show and he'd tug on his collar, and he's sitting there going, "Am I okay? Am I okay? It's my first movie."
Guy. We just met. The first time we met, he goes, "Hey kid, how you doing? Florida. It's like a sauna with gnats." And he was just that way every day. He was just, he's a legend.
Just brilliant and just came out of God knows where.
And sweet too, really endearing, really
always was very kind,
really nice, yeah,
to all of us. Yes.
And like a lot of people may not know this about him, but he had his own nightclub in New York, and he helped so many young comedians get started.
I believe it.
Place where people could start, and he would give them a boost and give them a leg up.
Yeah, so we have viewers from all over the world who have checked in. We have some people asking questions. In fact, you've anticipated the first question, which is great. Michael David Hall on Facebook was asking about memories of the late, great Rodney Dangerfield, and you guys provided a few of those. And you started to talk also about Harold Ramis and Doug Kenny. Talk about working with those guys and how their vision for what this movie was really shaped it.
Two very different guys, right, Michael?
Well, totally.
Yeah,
Harold's great skill was the kind of organizational kind of modulation.
And calm, very zen.
Totally.
Yeah.
Doug was like the mad genius, with all the crazy ideas and the great writing skills and the great bonhomie. Doug was probably one of the most charming, affable, lovable people. And when he died, it was really
horrible. I mean, he was all heart. He was all passion.
If you guys get a chance, if your audience gets a chance, they should watch a movie that is on Netflix called A Futile and Stupid Gesture, which is one of the lines that Doug wrote for Tim Matheson's character in Animal House. And it's essentially the Doug Kenny story. Yeah. And these two young writers somehow got this movie made, and Will Forte plays Doug. And then also Martin Mull plays Doug as if he had lived to a certain age. The movie's,
right.
This is a word I learned after the movie was made. The movie is very meta in that it references itself a lot. So Martin Mull plays Doug as if he had lived, and Will Forte plays him at the age they were making the movie. And then Joel McHale plays Chevy. And there's this kind of insight they have into Doug's irreverence and kind of capacity for crazy. And there was nobody like him. In the next room in my house, I have a picture of Doug on the wall from the cover of Esquire magazine after he died, and the title of the article was The Life and Death of a Comic Genius. So I can't say enough about Doug Kenny. He was kind of like the big brother I never had.
Doug found out that I wouldn't shoot the nude scene for Playboy simply because of this. I don't like being bullied. It was 1979, and I said no. And Doug found out I wasn't invited to the premiere in New York. So he reached into his pocket, bought 2 first-class tickets, and sent me to the premiere. And I went in, and there was John Peters at the popcorn counter. So I walked up and said, "John, what are you doing here? Popcorn everywhere." It was worth it.
You got your revenge on that, I think.
Oh, I don't have to. He's actually having a hard time himself. I don't have to do anything.
So you guys make the movie, you do the premiere. Like a lot of films when they first come out, ratings are uneven.
It
tanked. But no one cares now. 40 years later, we're still talking about this movie and loving it. Did you guys think, either when you were making the movie or right when it came out, that we'd be talking about it?
I thought we were in trouble.
much later.
Yeah, it was really crazy making it, and you know, when those reviews came out, it was really painful for everybody, and really, you know, I just thought it was going to be one of those disasters. That it's really easy to make a bad movie because so many things have to come together for a movie to be good, and then it has to find an audience, and it didn't find its audience at first, but somehow, I'm not sure what happened, but it started getting that kind of crazy momentum that movies get, and you know, the next thing you know, now it's 40 years later, and you know, we regard it as a classic, but at the time um it was gonna kind of fail. You know, I'm not sure. I mean, that was one of the problems that Doug had that led to, you know, the theory. A lot of people think Doug committed suicide. Those who know Doug know that probably what happened was that he was looking for a place to commit suicide, and then he tripped and fell.
That's the line.
That was Harold's line. He was looking for a place to jump when he slipped.
Yeah, you know, but I mean, you know, he was really devastated by the way the
Of
movie.
course he was. Yeah, he cared. That was the last time I saw him. Was at the premiere. Wasn't the party down at Rock Center?
I guess. I'm not even sure I was there. I don't remember.
But that was the last time I saw him, and I saw his parents. And I don't tell anybody anything. And I remember saying something. I never said to anybody. I said, "Please take care of him." And that was. And when I heard that, I'll tell you something, that woke me up to a lot of things that people were doing in those days. That gut punch was
Oh man, yeah, that was a really
yeah.
wake up call for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So Michael talked a little about it, but Cindy, what do you think has made this movie so appealing to folks so much later on?
I can tell you why. We were really having a good time. Well, most of us were, but you can't fake that. You can't. I mean, Michael is a well-trained actor, but Michael, isn't that the hardest thing in the world to really? We were really having the best time in the world, and for me, when I first saw it, I was appalled. It was like watching home movies of a family picnic with my relatives drunk and out of their minds. And when I saw the Dalai Lama scene, I said, what the hell is he saying? What is he doing? Where did that come from? Stop him. And that has become a classic thing. And that's just Bill being, he didn't have any lines, Mike, did he?
No, there was nothing written for Billy. He just wrote it all on the spot. But Cindy's right. You can't fake having a good time. And
don't you think?
Yeah, you can't fake that.
And because we really were, it's contagious.
Well, I remember I was on the set when Bill wrote that whole speech about the Cinderella story, the young greenskeeper wins the Masters, it's in the hole. And, you know, he had just sort of like come up with that. And I was walking by and Harold stopped me and said, you come over here, you should watch this. This is amazing. And it was like that with him every day.
Harold did that to me too. He said, come here and watch something. And we were, you know, because you know what, well, I don't know what you were doing, but I would, in the morning, I would either come home from whatever party I was at or get up and, you know, run through hair, makeup, and wardrobe and just go out on the set, because at some point the script really didn't have a lot to do with what we were doing that day. And
I was usually coming from church, Cindy. I was usually coming from Mass.
You were, yeah, I remember that.
Coming from Mass.
On a golf cart, yeah.
So I was walking past the clubhouse and Harold said, come over here and take a look at this. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, like, from broadcast background, I'm looking and he's got a golf club and he's swinging at these flowers. And all I can think is they'll never be able to reset that shot. What is he doing? Why is he doing that? And that was another one of Harold's little whispering in the ear. Can you do this, that, and the other thing? And Bill goes, got it.
There's actually, you guys, again, anticipating questions. A lot of fans asking about what your interaction was with Bill, and you guys started talking about that already. You didn't have a lot of scenes with him. He didn't have a lot of scenes with anyone. But how was working with him? Did you enjoy that part?
Well, the guy's a genius. You know what I mean? And what we didn't know then is that he was on his way to becoming one of the most beloved character actors and movie stars in American history. And at that point, he was only 27 years old, and you know, it was all just starting. You know, so I mean, in retrospect, you know, there's nobody like him. He's unique in the American cinema history, and he's got the same kind of momentum and place in history that, you know, someone like Buster Keaton has. You know, you can't Yeah, I mean, he's reached the pinnacle of what movie acting's about.
And it all just came from him. It wasn't anything. It just came from someplace that you can't describe. It's
Yeah.
it's what do they call that? Talent?
Yeah, it wasn't just the drugs and the alcohol. There was some talent involved too.
That's right.
Yeah. Want to remind everyone that we still have available those live video chats that we'll be doing at the top of the next hour. So if you're interested in a live chat with Cindy and a live chat with Michael.
Actually, Jerry, I'm interested in a live chat with Cindy. Can I sign up for one of
got it
those?
right here. Or you got your own live chat
I
going.
got things I'm going to say that I'm not going to say on camera that I could say
that
to you,
later.
so don't worry.
Or if you're interested in an autograph, recorded videos, those are available there at Wizard World Virtual.
I've got all kinds of stories, and I'm just like biting my tongue and going, nope.
It might be more appropriate for the individual video chats.
Depends on who I'm talking to.
I have a question from Stephen Moss on Facebook. He's asking what Ted Knight was like off camera. You alluded to that a little bit at the top, Michael, but talk about Ted Knight and working with him and then off camera with him.
Ted was like from the old pro mentality, and a lot of what, especially because he and Chevy, the characters were always in conflict. There was things where Chevy would do things that like Ted felt were like out of order or not quite right, but that's really just a little teeny bit of what happened with Ted. Generally speaking, Ted was incredibly supportive, really smart, had great ideas, thoroughly professional, was there. Like if you wanted to do it again, he would do it again. If you needed to do it 10 times, 15 times, he was there. He was the first there on the set and he was the last one to leave. So for me, it was nothing but a thrill to work with him and get to.
And he was very supportive. He found out I was Polish, so he became my Polish uncle because he also was. Oh, okay, Cindy, let me tell you how we're going to do this in that Ted Knight voice, and he was generous to a fault.
Yeah.
Until he got really pissed off at us toward the end of the filming. The last scene we shot was when the anchor goes through his boat. Rodney's anchor goes through his boat. That was the last thing we shot. That was the last day, and boy, was Ted in the mood that day.
But did he work that into his? He was supposed to be that way in the movie. He was supposed to be angry,
and he used it. Yes.
So you mentioned a couple of fun scenes. We've talked about a few of them. What are some of your favorite scenes, whether they involve you or not, in this film?
You start, Michael.
Well, I mean, I always liked the stuff with me and Chevy. I mean, that was a lot of fun. Chevy was a great improv artist. It was fun to try to kind of like match wits with him and let that happen. I also like hitting golf balls. I mean, I worked really, really hard to get a swing that was, somewhat believable. And so for me, those were the two biggest thrills. And then being off camera and watching Bill do what he did was hilarious. And watching Rodney do what he did was hilarious as well. But of course, I got to get into bed with Cindy Morgan. And
I was going to say, you guys had a scene together, didn't you?
Nobody else got to do that but me. Thank you very much.
Not on camera.
Well, that was on camera only. We were professional.
Yeah, that was a rough. That was a hard day. That was a really, really that's when I got all the yelling from John Peters in the other room. But you know what? I should send John Peters a thank you note because he took away my pay dates, my billing, and was screaming at me. And instead of being afraid, I got angry. And getting angry was the best thing I could have done. It was. Did it seem like I was angry, Michael?
Well, here's a little story nobody knows. Cindy had to go topless in that scene, as you know. And in order to make her feel comfortable, I insisted that everybody on the crew go topless as well.
So it looked like a porn. That would have been really.
So there's a lot of crew guys hanging around, with.
And do you remember what happened? What I did? I came back after they took everything away because of my damn broadcast background. I said, now I'm clearing the set. I want to see 4 guys. That cinematographer running camera. That guy's going to be the focus puller. I want to see that director and that actor. And until then, I got all day. Take your time. You want to I learned a lot of new words that day. Do you remember? I mean, I finally cleared. Do you remember they were under the bed behind the drapes? They were everywhere.
Really?
Yeah. They were gone after a while.
I was just so fascinated with you, Cindy. All I could see was you. I only had eyes for Cindy Morgan.
Now you can see what a wonderful actor this man is. And quite the comedian.
Well,
And blushing a little, Michael.
Oh, well, shucks.
who
There
would?
it is. I can see it.
So you mentioned, Cindy, that the acting chops that Michael has and some
Yeah.
of the roles, and we'll talk. Michael, talk about a little bit about some of the other roles that you had before and after this.
Well, I'd done one of the things. I'd done The Great Santini with Robert Duvall just before this, and it was the same distribution company, Orion, which was a distribution wing of Warner Brothers at the time. So that was sort of a great thing. But I had a lot of interesting things happen after that. I think you referenced Homeland. That was one of my most fun gigs. That was only 5 years ago. And I got to work with Claire Danes, who's one of the best actors of her generation. And some of the writing on that show is also extraordinary. And then, one of the producer directors on the show, Leslie Glatter, and I have been friends for probably about 30 years. And it was the first time we got to work together. She directed every third episode. And so, working with Claire and Leslie was probably one of the, best experiences I ever had. I was fortunate enough to work with George Clooney and Sidney Pollack on Michael Clayton, and that was a great treat. Right now, I'm in this show with Kevin Bacon called City on a Hill, and Aldous Hodge, who's this wonderful actor, is doing the other lead with Kevin, and I'm playing Kevin's partner, and that was also an amazing treat. And Tom Fontana is running it, who your audience may not know who that is, but he's the guy that ran Homicide for years, and St. Elsewhere. He's one of these TV geniuses that's a legend, and so there's a kind of level of quality of writing and insight that his work engenders in all the people around him. So I've had some really, really great experiences in the last couple of years.
And for you, Cindy, when you come to Wizard World and other shows of this type, half your audience is Tron. Talk about being in Tron right after this.
So after John Peters said I'd never blanking work again, and he took away my paid ad, I didn't work again. But Disney came calling. And I bypassed I couldn't figure it out until many years later. It was somebody I was dating who took me to a lunch because he was in a cartoon. And I just had my salad and listened. And as it turned out, that was Tron. They took it from that studio, took it to Disney. It was the first CGI film ever made. Michael, it was 180 degrees the opposite of Caddyshack. The script meant nothing. That was the only thing in common. I just wouldn't even read the pages anymore. Because it made nothing. I would come into a sound stage is like, if you go into a Costco and it's a giant black warehouse with nothing there, that's what we were working in. And I would come in and they'd say, okay. And they would give me words that made no sense. And I would say, okay. And I found the reality in the other actors' eyes. I was working with Jeff Bridges and David Warner. Oh my God, Michael.
David Warner, yeah, he's a genius.
When he told me I was going to die, there was no acting required. That man is powerful. He was wonderful. So Tron was a very difficult job because it referenced a lot of things that was way ahead of its time. But I just didn't question it. I just went along with everything. Mobius, a comic book artist, designed my costume. And one day they were gluing it to my head, and then they would glue it to the blisters, and then they would glue it, the blisters would bleed. And I said, that's it. Tossed it aside. I said, I'm wearing a hockey helmet like the guys. I can get. It turns out that it worked out because I was on this thing called a solar sailor. All it was a black warehouse with a black riser with a black banquet table on it. And that morning I walked in and the director, Steven Lisberger, said, okay, Morgan, you're flying the ship. You're up there, Bruce Boxleitner, and then you'll pick Jeff up. And Morgan, you're flying. I said, all right, I got to ask, what the hell are you talking about? There's nothing here. There's nothing here. There's literally, it wasn't green screen. It wasn't blue. We shot it in black and white with the old Panavision cameras from Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah. And he said, just go and do anything and the artist will put it in. So on the banquet table, you know what I mean, about the size of a banquet table. In my mind, I saw a soundboard because when I did what I did, I was the FCC licensed sound engineer. who ran a soundboard, and that's what I had to do. But it was a tough job. We were shooting on the Disney lot. There was no goofing around at all, because the suits would come in once a day, walk through, look, see what we were doing, and walk out. And Tron had the same experience. It didn't do as well as they had hoped. The Wall Street Journal gave it a bad review. They pulled the advertising budget. But I'll tell you something. It's where Caddyshack is a lifestyle, Tron is a religion to their followers. And anybody who has been, it's a spiritual thing. They even use the word canon as if it's, following the scene. So it was a wonderful experience, harder than heck to do, but what is it? Lucky to get a job like that.
And there might not have been goofing around on that set, but as you said before, there was certainly goofing going on during this set. We have a question from Mel Schultz. He wants to know who did the most jokes. Who was the biggest jokester among the
Mel
cast?
Schultz. Is that Mel Schultz from Germany or Mel Schultz from?
Mel Schultz from Facebook was wondering.
She's a friend of mine. If it's that Mel, okay.
It could be. It could be that one.
Okay, so who was the biggest jokester and what's that?
On the Caddyshack set.
That would that's like saying
Yeah.
the oldest guy on the Mount Everest ascent.
Yeah, right.
It was a competition every day,
They should have turned the cameras around.
Yeah, because I mean, Harold was really funny, Doug was funny, Billy was funny, Chevy was funny, Rodney was funny, Ted was funny, Cindy was funny. Everybody got in their licks.
Do you remember when they took away our keys to the golf carts because they didn't want us ripping up the greens at night? And all you had to do was get underneath the hood, and you know how easy it is to hot wire a golf cart?
Well, no, Cindy, do you want to explain to everybody?
They shouldn't have sent me to Catholic school. Actually, yeah. I was supposed to go to the Illinois Institute of Technology, and I took a hard left and went to Northern Illinois.
Yeah, all I'm reminded of the Blues Brothers going to prison in Joliet, Illinois now for some reason.
I understand.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, these guys were the best minds of their generations.
And they would be in the party with us.
Yeah. And everybody was just we just had a great time.
Can you imagine for the funny, Rodney had more fun than any of us, if you recall, in that respect.
Yeah, he was a serious party person.
Yes.
How long was he on the set? I know Bill famously was only on about 6 days. How long was he on the set?
Rodney was there pretty much the whole time. If I
think so, yeah.
Like the good 5 or 6 weeks that we were down there. Maybe it was more 7 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, folks have seen a lot of the making ofs. There's been a few different ones. And the big story, I guess, that comes out of it is that originally this movie was supposed to focus on the caddies.
That's right.
In the Caddyshack. And it flipped over. Michael, how did you take that, and how did you kind of work with it as the film changed during filming?
It was probably less than 2 weeks into filming. It was clear that they were throwing that story out and that they were going to go with this idea about mixing Bill and Chevy and Rodney and Ted. And, I remember one of the other actors, Scott Columbia, who played D'Annunzio, said, "Hey, man, they're cutting all your stuff." And I was like, yeah, but I mean, who can blame them? Because those guys are geniuses, and I didn't lack confidence back then, but I also was aware of the difference between me and those 4 guys. And, it kind of like took the load off of my shoulders a little bit. And I was happy, that there was going to be more weight bared or borne by people like Bill, because, they were born for that kind of thing. And I got lucky getting cast. And like I said, I didn't lack for confidence, but those guys were just working on a different playing field than I was, and it was just, fortunate enough, for me that I could kind of sit back and watch it happen and then, get off a good one every once in a while.
Right. What your wonderful work was your reactions to those guys. You were the audience POV. The way, do you do drugs, Danny, every day? I mean, just the look on your face.
Tell me more about my wonderful work, Cindy.
It was your reactions, not just what you said, or you leading. It was the way you would watch these guys and go, okay. And that was hilarious.
Well, we had a good time, man. They were, it was a once in a lifetime experience.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't think I could survive another one.
No.
you know, there was that number 2 that we don't speak of, correct?
Well, you remember that golf commercial went around ESPN when Fluff was Tiger's caddy? Remember Fluff with the mustache? And so
Yeah,
it was every day they asked Cam, and then they asked all these golfers, including Jack Nicklaus, what's the best golf movie ever made? And they all say Caddyshack. And then someone says, what's the worst golf movie ever made? And Fluff says Caddyshack too.
that's right.
It's the truth. So Bob Feiner wants to know what quote you hear most often from fans from the movie, whether it's one that of your own or one that you reacted to in the film.
I have to go ahead, Michael.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was walking down the street once in Los Angeles, and I have to confess it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and someone rolled down their window, and as they were driving by me on the Sunset Strip, and yelled Noonan, and that's pretty much the one that I get a lot still, no matter what. That's a big one. Noonan. Be the Ball's another one. That's a popular one. Yeah, Noonan.
When I have to write, it's usually, do you want to tie me up with some of your ties, Ty? That's a lot of writing. What?
That should be on a t-shirt.
Should it?
Yeah. I'm going to have it tattooed on the inside of my eyes.
Would you? I want to see that. Please do.
Yeah, Michael, I think the lines that you used, I don't know if a round of golf has been played in America in the last 30 plus years that hasn't had one of those lines spoken by the golfers.
Be the ball.
Talk about how golf is almost secondary to the movie, though, the way you did the movie, and I guess it could have been about tennis. It could have been about another sport, but it was what the actors and you guys talk about it being kind of almost not as important to the movie.
I was wearing a tennis outfit. I was supposed to play tennis, but I couldn't. I had 1 month to learn to dive, play tennis, bodybuilding, voice lessons, and a few other things.
Well, I can assure you, Cindy Morgan needed no lessons in bodybuilding. She was one of the most beautiful young women I've ever worked with.
Oh, shush. I couldn't dive either. That's the best cut in cinematic history.
But the golf, I'm not sure I agree with the premise of your question, Jerry, because the golf thing was a really big deal to me to look like I knew what I was doing. So I was paying attention to that. But the thing at the time that I remember was that golf was not cool. Golf has become this thing now. Like, I've gone to golf tournaments and Steven Stills is there playing golf. Willie Nelson is playing golf. But back in the 70s, it was not that at all.
No.
And I think that's one of the reasons why, the snobs versus the slobs things was so popular, or so, that's one of the things they got right about it. And then, like at the time, like, when Tiger came on the scene, that's when golf kind of changed, and the audience for golf broadened because of his popularity and his charisma. And so, I think a lot of it was that they were kind of ahead of the curve even on that. And when golf hit, Caddyshack sort of kind of got caught up in that wave, I think, of Tiger's fame and watching him compete with guys like Phil Mickelson and that kind of thing.
My character had a line that said golf, Nixon plays golf. It wasn't very cool. But I did an event with the Colorado Rockies once, and Mizuno was their sponsor. And Mizuno said they're getting all of their sports guys, like you mentioned, because when you have to do what a sports guy has to do or a UI have to do, you can't be 100% or you're not doing your job. You have to go to 180. So off season, it becomes difficult. So Mizuno and a lot of companies are getting their sports guys to play golf, to take someplace to put that 180% and go there. When I do events, those guys don't come to play, they come to win. Have you noticed that?
I'm not sure we're doing the same events.
They're coming to drink.
Could be.
Yeah, no, that doesn't happen at my event.
No, the ones I meet with are they really want to win, whether they can or not. Maybe we are doing different events.
I just want to love people. I'm a lover, Cindy. I'm just there for people. I want to support them.
Oh, I understand.
Michael, earlier you brought up Keaton, Buster Keaton, and someone who, I don't know if you worked directly with him, but he certainly worked in his era, was Henry Wilcoxon.
That was another thing. I mean,
Film.
Yes.
like
In your movie, talk about working with that kind of a legend who'd been in films as long as film existed.
yeah, I mean, he was a silent film star and a stud. And you know, when we did that movie, he was probably 75 years old, but he was in better shape than all of us.
And the best behaved of all of us on the set. Right?
Oh my God, he was, you know, he could care less about all the parties and all that stuff. He was just,
He didn't blink an eye. He just went, oh, okay, and he did these beautiful scenes and these crazy characters, and never, like you said, blinked an. And wasn't he the guy in the Ten Commandments who was the voiceover? And Moses went down to Egypt. He also had a part in it. He
yes,
played
was the voice
Pharaoh's.
of God. I knew that voice was familiar.
That was
hearing that
Henry.
voice. I've been hearing that voice in my head ever since I was in Catholic school in kindergarten.
We all have. I just saying, yeah.
All coming back now.
He was Cecil B. DeMille's son-in-law, I believe.
Yeah, he was in the Ten Commandments, and
Yep.
he's dating all the way back to the 20s, amazing teens and 20s.
Nice man.
Just a couple more questions before we finish up. We have a question from Tim Comer. He wants to ask about the impact of the song "I'm All Right" on the film.
You know, Kenny Loggins is a genius. And I recently, if you go online, you can find he and Daryl Hall doing the song like 2 years ago or a year and a half ago at Daryl's place. And it really, really rocks. And, you know, Kenny wrote the theme for Footloose, for Caddyshack, and I think 2 or 3 other big films in the 70s. The first concert I ever went to when I was in high school was the Loggins and Messina concert at Carnegie Hall. So when he was, you know, and I got to meet him once backstage at a gig, and, you know, and I pointed out that, you know, that I was Danny Noonan, and he could have cared less. So, you know, but I still think he's amazing.
I thought it was, I used to play his songs when I was working on the radio. So to have him write a song when I walk by the pool, I still don't believe it. By the way, did you
sound for the movie? It's perfect for. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
other movie. There's no other song. I can't imagine any other song there. You know.
No, I mean I think he even has the Gophers at his concert.
That's where the Gopher went.
Yes.
He's in Kenny Loggins' band, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So we're just about to wrap up, but you guys want to just give you a quick chance now if you have any kind of causes you're working with now or some things you're working on. Mike, we talked about the one show that you're working on, just kind of an open forum for you guys to just talk about some stuff that you're working on or that you have going.
No,
Go ahead, Michael.
You know, I don't want to say anything about that, but I do want to tell a quick story. You know, as actors, we're always looking to be not pigeonholed, and we're trying to do this and that and get recognized for this and that. And for years and years and years and years, it was like Danny Noonan and Caddyshack, Danny Noonan and Caddyshack, to the point where I was like, man, I wish somebody would just think about me in another way. And I was doing a gig in 2007, and the wardrobe designer said, I'm a big Caddyshack fan. And I was like, yeah, hey, you know, great. And she kind of read me, you know, and afterwards, she said, do you mind if I tell you why I'm a big Caddyshack fan? And I said, sure. No, I mean, sure. She said, well, my dad just died. And when we were in the hospital with him, he was dying of leukemia. And the only thing that made it better was that we would sit as a family and watch Caddyshack. And from that moment on, my relationship to the film entirely changed, because there's something to be said for making people laugh. And that being in a film that has that kind of place in the American culture and American pop pantheon is a privilege, and I'm really grateful for it. So for everybody that loves Caddyshack and everybody that's still interested, thank you.
That's exactly true. I got a letter a couple of years ago from a commander who said, actually it was more than that, it was about 10 years ago. And he said, I show Caddyshack to my guys. I hear from first responders, guys in the military. And he said, I show Caddyshack to my guys at least once a month. He said, because when you go into that place where there's no hope, it's good to know there's something like this back home. Or at least there was. Or at least there's a memory of it. And for 1 minute in time or for an hour and a half in time, you can smile again. And that means a lot.
True, it's great. It's a great sentiment to finish on.
Yeah.
Michael O'Keefe, Cindy Morgan, thank you so much for being with us today. Having you guys on here really enhanced what we've been doing. You know, our last couple months, we've met some folks from some movies, and you guys were just tremendous. So thank you so much for being with us.
Hey,
Thank
man,
you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
See you,
So much.
Cindy.
Bye-bye, buddy.
Bye.
See you soon.
So don't forget, everyone, we have those live video chats coming up at the top of the hour, autographs and recorded videos. Those are also available to
Stop the
folks.
video.
You can do that. Yes, Cindy, you can do that. So head up on stage. Wizard World Virtual Experiences is the place. It's wizardworldvirtual.com. Coming up soon on our Wizard World Virtual Experiences. Tomorrow we have the cast of Harry Potter. Tuesday, Game of Thrones. Also Tuesday, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Wednesday, Doctor Who. Friday, Lost. This is an incredible Saturday, Dragon Ball Z. We've had Caddyshack, and then we're followed by those amazing properties. Wizard World Virtual Experiences is the place to be over the next week and moving forward as we continue to hopefully bring you guys the best in these Q&As. And again, if you're your opportunity now for a few more minutes to get that live video chat in with either Cindy or Michael, and also autographs and recorded videos. We'll have those up for a few more days that you'll be able to purchase those. And again, the Wizard World Vault is your perfect place. Open up the vault and you can get the best in pop culture merchandise that we've culled over 20 years of Wizard World events. And while we can't do these events in person and in cities right now, we're going to continue to bring you, just look at that lineup we have coming up this week. We're going to continue to bring you the best in pop culture right to your screen, right into your home. I'm Jerry Milani. Once again, thanks so much for being with us on Wizard World Experience, and please be with us the rest of this week. Thanks so much, everyone.